marathon. Again, 3 presentations covering Spain, Brazil, and Korea. So I see the first hand. So please, microphone to the colleague. Please stand up. And before asking the question, your name, please, and your company.
I'm Hung Shin, in charge of growth business and strategy. Ericsson LG. I'm working for Ericsson LG. 한국어로 질문 드리겠습니다. 한만희 교수님께 질문을 좀 한 가지 구체적으로 드리고 싶은데요. 아까 그 스마트 시티 인덱스에서 보면 코펜하겐하고 스톡홀름에 비해서 이제 서울이 인덱스가 좀 낮은 부분이 트랜스포트 앤 모빌리티를 포함해서 이제 몇 가지가 있었는데요. 뭐 부산하고 세종 그 스마트 시티 프로젝트를 진행함에 있어서도 그렇고 앞으로 이제 협력, 특히 이제 국제 협력을 중요하게 생각하신다고 했는데요. 혹시 그 부분에서 좀 더 구체적인 계획이나 플랜을 갖고 계시는지 궁금해서 질문드립니다.
가급적 다른 나라에 잘된 것을 갖다가 벤치마킹 해가지고 그리고 또 다른 나라에 협조를 받아가지고 실제로 좋은 시설을 만들고 그리고 그걸 통해서 도시민들의 생활의 질을 높일 수 있다면 얼마든지 다른 나라의 기술이라든가 협조를 받을 수 있다고 생각하고요. 그런 의미에서 구체적인 보관은 아무래도 정부에서 지금 만들고 있겠지만 제가 볼 때는 우리나라 기술만 계속 도입하고 그럴 필요는 없다 이렇게 생각합니다. 앞으로 많은 참여 기회가 있을 것으로 생각합니다.
I'm just a member of IPMA Korea. Let me start with some congratulations on the organizing of this panel. It's extremely efficient. It helps us making a point that making a point that human capital is very important in making every city smart. And you showed us the human capital is selecting area in every of what is called as smart city, worldwide leading smart city. And then the two speakers, one from Brazil and one from Korea, seem to be made some different interpretation of human capital. Where there seems to be think that human capital is a stakeholder, people who have to be served by the smart city. It is you call it as usual, but I think it is the potential inhabitants of the smart city. And the Korean side think that people is simply a bit of a target of investment and some market. So, two interpretation is very different and very extreme, but the focus on the same people. You may say that the Korean side will think that the Korea, the human capital, people is those who can cultivate their activities, abilities by being exposed to the better infrastructure like ICT, but the other case seems that it is more. Those people need to be the target of communication. So my question is that there is, although you are using same language, but different definition. So I think this is where the IPMA has to play the role, and how to make language common to every people, those involved in the smart city. So I'm going to ask you, Tessus, and what is your plan as IPMA to build up the groundwork of all the interested parties using same language, the same implication. Thank you very much.
And yes, without education and training, we never will rise a kind of vocabulary. So the vocabulary is basic for the understanding. And we are doing that in the field of project, program, and portfolio management since more than 50 years ago. So we are sharing global standards. And when we address what means project, what means program, what means portfolio, based in competences, in more than 70 languages, people understand what do you like to mean. My plans, I have 70 plans, an executive board. That's the United Nations of Project Management. So we are facing that challenge. And thank you, the initiative that Dr. Kim proposed last year in Kazakhstan. We are facing this around the world. This is the contribution of IPMA Korea for developing the specific interest group. And one of the main objectives of the specific interest group must be share the same language, the same goals, the same challenges. The second part of my response is about, as well, languages that we face confusion about what means education and training based in competence. So competence is much more than knowledge. We have all our definition. And probably if you take a look under a research perspective in the gap that we find out in this radar matrix, all the cities fail in the human capital development. Why? Because it's an abuse of top-down definition. So someone are designing projects not taking into account the stakeholders management perspective. And projects fail because of that. If you try to find out how many municipalities are defining competences for the different levels of the different departments in the municipality, you cannot find. We have one experience, Panama City, the municipality of Panama City, that 3 years ago, the mayor, because if you win in the Panama City, probably you will be the next president of the Republic of Panama. But that's politics, and we are here for helping the more sustainable initiative. With Reinhard and other colleagues, we faced the situation 5 years ago. And through IPMA standards, the political strategy will be converted in a program, in a program portfolio management. And the president of the community, the mayor, create the PMO. And creating this PMO enhance a set of different isolated programs that the municipality works and fits urbanistic development plans with animal disease plan, with education and training program for educating to the different peoples in the different departments. This is a good example. And the Panama municipality reached the Delta certification of PMA in level 3 from 5. Not so bad. This is a good example. And now if you are looking for who is competent in the PMO of the Panama municipality, you can find a set of professionals. And having defined competences, you can train the people who have a gap of competences. You can recognize the people that they are developing more basic competences, and you can perform and you can analyze the performance of your people working in projects or in programs or in portfolios. But yes, this is our responsibility, and this will be our major contribution to the smart cities specific interest group. We need to invest much more in education training. We need to invest much more assessing the performance, and we need the different approaches. It's not about only the excellent designers top down. We need to enhance. We need a different systemic approach. Hope that my response can help. Thank you.
I think there's also a global initiative. ISO is developing. I think we are all working on a harmonization of a common understanding of what smart city means on different levels, and trying to help to bridge the different understanding. Because at the end, we can only learn if we understand what the other is talking about. So standards play a very crucial role. But there's no one standard that copy-paste into all the cities, because that's not working. So every city needs a very individualistic approach. Please.
Convenient is also Korean. Mr. Raphael께서 리오데자네이루 스마트 시티에 대해서 말씀하셨는데 컴플렉서티에 대해서 말씀을 해주셨는데 다이버시티나 컴플렉서티에 대한 우리가 얘기를 할 때 우리 프로젝트 매니지먼트에서 포트폴리오까지 생각을 하면 동질성에 대한 다이버시티냐 컴플렉시티냐 아니면 비동질성까지 포함한 다이버시티냐 컴플렉시티냐에 따라서 스마트 시티에 대한 캐터고라이징이 달라질 것 같은데 그거에 대해서 생각하는 어떤 전략이 있으신지. 캐터고라이징 할 때 인프라스트럭처라는 것의 동질성에서는 도로의 확장에 대한 과학 기술의 확장이고 그것이 비동질성으로 확장 성장할 때는 그것이 주거, 환경, 삶의 가치까지 확장되는 그러한 것까지 갔을 때 우리는 포트폴리오 개념을 생각하게 되는 거 아닌가. 그런 거에 대한 어떤 캐터고라이징 인덱스 같은 거는 생각해 보신 것이 있는지.
We have in IPMA for our certifications, we have categorization for complexity. In this matter, we are using still that, but I do not know if this clearly fits for the needs for smart cities. So I guess it's a challenge for this group, for this specific interest group to see and to understand, to balance two things. One thing is to understand the portfolio and how complex is the portfolio, and you have to understand this on a regular basis for smart cities. Today we are using basically what you have available. And today, to me, it fits, but I guess we should understand better the scale and see if the measurement makes sense. Because it makes sense because I made my mind an adaptation to fit it into. But maybe we should clarify this. When you go to program management, it's a very big problem. I'm very thankful for the book because most of the time you not know the idea of program. So you have to find a way to understand this in the smart city approach. Because if you have a government that goes through your own time, you have to work this in a program approach. If it's based on a mandate, probably it's going to be multiple projects that are not going to be fit into a program in a long run. And we as IPMA are supposed to advise that we're supposed to use program management in order to fulfill the needs for small cities, depends on the level of development of each area. So it makes sense to make that. I guess our main challenge is to create and to develop a methodology, to have an approach that we can understand the level of complexity that we're facing, the level of competence of the municipality and the levels involved in the process, and to understand the level of complexity and competence of the individuals that are dealing with that. Because when you have aid from a consultancy or from an association, from someone outside, you are taking a borrowed competence, but it's not your own. So I guess the role of education and training, as you said, is the key issue that we must develop for society in order to make them understand this and to make this part of the curriculum in universities, also in schools, to understand the equilibrium and some sustainability, because if you understand the base of sustainability, you understand the reason for and the reason why small cities. So, answering directly your question, I don't think that we have already evaluated, at least I didn't, if what we have today fits for reality. I've been using it, but I think there's room for improvement. And I guess this is going to be the main role of this specific group to develop this in a clear way with this different approach and culture, and put this to be proven. I guess this is going to be the next phase, the next step.
I personally think that complexity is a big issue in cities in general. Because I saw the nice pictures of Southern Ireland. It was a greenfield development. We will hear about Neon, it's greenfield development. But if you start building infrastructure in Germany, the very ancient cities, you will be surprised what will be your obstacle in building. Every week we hear in Germany, one city, they found old bombs, still from the World War. So, or very ancient foundations of Roman settlements. And that adds complexity to building, because then they need 5 or 6 years to excavate all this. And also, I wonder, in Korea, it looks like you just develop a new city. That's not possible in my country, because you need to take into account all the, let's say, existing infrastructure. And even if you start building a new subway, it will be a hell of a job of planning to build it somewhere where it's not conflicting with other existing infrastructure. How do you do that in Korea? That would be my question. It looks all so easy, greenfield, or do you also have troubles with complexity of planning and building?
Regarding that, I'd like to answer like this. For 30 years, Korea was suffering from the lack of shortage of the houses, and then Korean government thought that providing huge number of housing units in the country is the most essential solution for solving the housing issues and social problems that were. So we developed lots of new towns surrounding the major metropolitan cities, because there is a very big problem developing inside of the cities. You know, that the interests of the people living there are very much complicated. So the easiest way and the fastest way to provide more housing units, build a new town, and then to make the new towns viable, the government and the government corporation provide lots of infrastructure to link between the new towns and the existing metropolitan cities. So in this aspect, there are infrastructure and built areas in Korea are really new in that aspect, but still there are many old areas, old cities, and then how to compromise or to coordinate such kind of the differences inside the city is a big problem as well. So these days, the Korean government emphasized regeneration of the urban area. Redevelopment. That means we need to preserve some areas of the cities and to renovate balancing the different areas of the cities. So yes, there is a big policy issues in Korea these days.
I also want to put a bit spice in the discussion here, because we're talking a lot about smart cities and making cities attractive, but are we really doing the right thing? Are we attracting the people now to move more into cities? Or shall we do just the opposite, to enable the countryside so that the people can stay, to avoid all the traffic, to improve quality of life in the countryside? So I'm sometimes struggling whether we do the right thing. So what do you think in your countries? Shall we improve the cities and attract the people to the cities, or just do the opposite?
Yes. During the period when we built new towns, the countryside, it's very easy to install lots of good facilities, infrastructure, sometimes ICT facilities, something like that. But there is a limitation to attract the people to the new town, because people are very much fond of living in some familiar community and good education facilities, especially in Seoul. So it is not easy to attract the people to the new town. And then for the Seoul Raphael area, it is not easy to make the people live in more comfortable atmosphere or environment. So that's why the smart city is suggested as an alternative to upgrade the quality of the life inside the big cities. And then the Korean government want to provide such kind of new function in the major city. Not only the local town, but also the big city are able to enhance the functions and the conditions of the people.
Yeah. I think that the question is why do people like to come to the city and don't stay in the rural context? And the answer is very simple. So it's a lack of trust, it's a lack of hope, it's a lack of future. The fathers think that the best life for his family is in the city and not in the rural field. And we need to face this challenge. This is part of the challenge. This is part of the challenge, and we need how we can face fast track working with smart cities. We need to work with the smart rural. We need, for example, to digitalize agriculture. We need to create hope for stand the people, fix the people in the rural areas. Digitalizing the rural context means that we can improve a lot the quality of life, and improving the quality of life in the rural context, the people may stay in the rural context. So we need to face, for me, and this is was part of my message, it's not enough to face only the smart cities challenge as such. We need to consider why the people don't stay in the rural context. This can help a lot.
It's very interesting, this question, because we have sub-programs of the program, which is in the city that used to leave our emperor, that was Metropolis. And we developed a program that to keep people in the city and understand why people are leaving and come to the Rio de Janeiro. And as Jesus said, most of them think that they're going to have a better future. So this is create a program, a technological part, just to analyze and to try to understand and to balance the local economy and to develop it. And we started a program inside to to have innovation and partnership in order to develop local business and to develop local area. And it's been a very huge success because most of the people don't want to leave the countryside because it has a better quality of life, less violence, better quality of air, etc. And they have their families there. So the place of birth for most of them is very important. So it's a very interesting approach that we are supposed to be doing is to understand why people are leaving and then start to create a program of smart I think that's I'm not part of this story, but it has already begun.
So it's not just to focus on cities, but to have also the regions in the focus and balance.
Yeah. Okay. And you have to think the whole as a city with a different economical approach. That sometimes you think so much about the technology approach, the technological approach. You forget that you need the places to eat, so it's very important for the country.
Thank you. Now we have the next question.
제 이름은 박수만이고요. 저는 IPMA 지금 감사로 있습니다. 그리고 저는 대우조선의 지금 법률 고문으로 일하고 있는 변호사입니다. 지금 말씀하신 토픽과 굉장히 밀접한 관계가 있는 것 같은데요. 스마트 시티라고 하면 well-educated smart people 그리고 mainly engaged in service industry 이런 사람들을 주로 레지던트로 생각하는 개념 아닌가 하는 생각이 들어서요. 예를 들면 스마트폰 있잖아요. 굉장히 비싸고 여러 가지 기능이 많이 있는데 저희 부모님 세대는 그걸 사드려도 잘 이용을 못 하세요. 마찬가지로 스마트 시티가 아주 고도로 발달된다고 가정해보면 그 시티에 거주하기 위해서 페이해야 될 코스트는 상당히 비싸질 것 같고요. well-educated smart people은 그 시티의 여러 가지 컨비니언트 펑션들을 잘 활용할 텐데 old senior 또는 약간 좀 less educated 이런 분들은 그 코스트는 비싼데 효용을 제대로 활용하지 못하기 때문에 결국은 스마트 시티에서 밀려나게 되지 않을까 하는 생각이 들거든요. 그래서 우리나라에서도 베이비붐 세대들이 대거 은퇴하는 연령으로 들어가고 있는데 그 발전된 스마트 시티의 경험이 올드 제너레이션의 그 거주 성향에 어떤 그 영향이 있는지 그런 경험이라든지 전망 그런 부분에 대해서 좀 말씀 들어보고 싶습니다.
That's very interesting. I think there's not enough research on all this. In Germany, we have the problem that the smaller the city, the higher the prices of renting an apartment. That's because that's very attractive to the businesses to rent apartments, and so they just increase prices. It means for the government, you need to take care of the people to have social, affordable apartments, especially for the elderly people who may not have earned enough to cope with these apartment prices. Otherwise, you will end up with very nice cities where only these, what we sometimes say, yuppies or I don't know, double income, no kids, live because that's the only one that can afford these apartments. And the rest, where do they live? They live far outside, need to travel, and are disconnected from all the services. I think that's a very valid point. It's not just only about smart technology, because to my experience, people, also elderly people, can use it in a way. But then you need to think of payment systems. That's the next step. So there are a lot of complications. I don't know about research in that regard, so maybe that's a challenge for us all to look into deeper into that. But maybe you can join into this. Do you have any answers to that?
아줌마로 any answer in Korean? 그 지금 말씀하신 거를 충분히 이해를 합니다. 뭐냐면 그 같은 스마트폰이라도 복잡한 건 못 쓰는 세대가 있고 새로운 기능을 원하는 또 세대들이 있는데 문제는 이 스마트 시티가 그 모든 새로운 첨단 제품의 전시장이 아니다. 가장 기본은 도시다. 도시라는 건 사람이 사는 거거든요. 사람이 편안하게 살기 위해서 그런 첨단 제품도 필요한 거니까 지금 오히려 지금 주객이 전도된 것처럼 사람들이 생각하기가 쉽다. 그래서 뭐냐면은 사람들이 편하게 살 수 있기 위해서 그러기 위해서 도움이 되는 그런 디바이스들을 갖다가 동원하는 것을 갖다가 우리가 목표를 삼아야 된다. 그런 면에서 지방자치단체 주민들과 직접 접촉하는 지방자치단체 역할이 굉장히 중요하다고 저는 항상 강조하고 있습니다. 그래서 주민이 과연 뭐가 불편하고 새로운 것을 도입했을 때 어떠한 반응이 나오는지를 수시로 모니터를 해서 그것을 업그레이드 시켜주든지 아니면 그보다 오히려 기존의 상태를 유지해가면서 사람들이 편하게 살도록 할 것인지 그걸 갖다가 지방 행정에서 역할을 충실히 해주면 지금같이 그렇게 오히려 기계가 중심이 되고 사람 밀려나는 그런 상태는 피할 수 있지 않을까. 항상 그거를 중심으로 삼아야 된다 이렇게 저는 생각하고 있습니다.
My name is 대학원장. KIR, I'm the current position auditor. 나도 좀 우리말로 두 가지 질문하겠습니다. 하나는 한 원장님하고 또 하나는 알메나 프록스페인. 하나는 우리 스마트 시티 여기 이제 발표하신 자료를 보면 스마트 시티 여러 가지 팩터들이 있는데 그리고 아까 말말 그쪽에서 발표할 때도 소프트웨어보다는 사용자가 더 중요하다 이런 얘기를 이제 했는데 그러면은 알만한테 내가 물어보고 싶은 거는 거기 탑 스마트 시티 스페인에서 탑 5를 이렇게 얘기하면 말라가 바르셀로나 이런 식으로 얘기를 하지 않았습니까? 그런데 거기를 주로 이제 외국에서 방문하는 사람들도 굉장히 중요할 거라고 생각이 되는데 그러니까 거기 사는 사람만 중요한 게 아니라 그 유명한 바르셀로나라든가 또 성가족 성당 이런 걸 보기 위해서 가는 사람들도 많고 또 말라가 같은 데는 어떻게 보면 굉장히 경치도 좋고 또 기후도 굉장히 좋고 스페인 다 기후가 다 좋지만 그런데 방문하는 사람들에 대한 어떤 나름대로의 그 배려는 스마트 시티 이렇게 발표하실 때 별로 없는 것 같아요. 예를 들면은 바르셀로나 같은 데 가보면 방문하는 사람들 입장에서 보면은 소매치기가 너무 많아가지고 퍼스널 세큐리티 문제가 굉장히 큰데 그런 부분에 대해서 뭘 갖다가 또 해가지고 그때 상위권에 이제 2등의 랭크가 되고 있는지 이런 부분. 그 다음에 특히 스페인 같은 데는 거기 사는 사람들에 대한 언어가 특히 영어가 세계 공용어라고 한다면은 영어를 너무 못해요 그 있는 사람들이. 그래서 그런 부분에 대한 문제라든가 이런 부분이 과연 우리가 스마트 시티의 어떤 팩터로서 굉장히 중요한데 이런 부분을 갖다 왜 임프루브 시키기 위한 노력을 안 하는가 하는 게 하나 문제고 또 한 원장님한테는 지금 남북 교류가 굉장히 이제 저하지 않습니까? 굉장히 이제 증가되고 있고 가능성이 많이 높은데 지금 북한에서 관련해서 보도되는 바에 의하면 원산 같은 경우 굉장히 이제 스마트 시티는 아니래도 시티로서의 개발을 많이 하려고 하는데 그거에 대한 배경은 거기 사는 사람들보다도 원산을 배경으로 해서 금강산이라든가 또 스키장 마신령이라든가 이런 여러 가지 경우는 그러한 사람들을 위한 방문객들을 위한 그게 굉장히 아마 상당히 많은 비중을 두고 개발하려고 하는 그런 건데 그렇다면은 거기 사는 사람보다 오는 사람들에 대한 어떤 스마트 시티로서 그렇게 하려고 하면 우리가 조금 그쪽보다는 앞선 나라 입장에서 뭐를 갖다가 우리가 그쪽한테 남북 경영이 더 증가된다 그럴 때 뭐를 갖다가 우리가 지식을 갖다가 쉐어링을 갖다가 할 것인지 이런 오는 사람들을 갖다가 연대해 보면 중국 사람들도 올 수 있고 또 유럽 사람들도 올 수 있고 미국 사람들도 우리나라 사람들도 또 많이 갈 거고 그러면 그런 사람들을 위해서 특별히 우리가 가지고 있는 축적된 지식 중에서 어떤 걸 우리가 더 좀 이런 이런 걸 갖다 강조하면서 그 도시를 갖다 개발하는 데 도움을 줄 건가 하는 게 있으면 좀 말씀 좀 해주시죠.
Yeah, Spain. The complexity of the complexity. So we are during the last 1,000 years trying to find out where we are. So actually in Spain are living close to 50 million people, and we receive another 50 million people yearly. So that means that the real population, not in Barcelona, but more in Malaga and in other places, are sometimes 2 or 3 times more than the ordinary population. So, and hopefully the initiative in the SMART works and works well. It's the people are trying to lift the flux of visitors during 12 months, avoiding to concentrate during the summertime. This was one of the best initiatives. Are different cities because are different governments. So Barcelona actually is a big mess. It's the municipality is one set of parties. Regional governments are looking for the independence. The national government are looking to make something different. So trying to put all together is not so easy in terms of political issues. So it's Barcelona is facing a big challenge because only in the last 6 months, more than 20,000 companies leave Barcelona. The tourism in Barcelona in the last 6 months decreased 11%. So it's a huge impact in Barcelona because politics. In the opposite, you can find Bilbao, San Sebastian, Santander is north. It's not sunny and beach. It's the green Spain, raining. So the approach is quite different. It's as well to trying to invite the visitors, trying to build a different and a specific approach for more high level of tourism. Is another kind of tourism. Southern tourism is more sunny and beach. So it's a differentiation, but certainly the 3 cities works very well in terms of informatization, public transportation, many issues. Regarding the languages, we have 6 official languages. And it's not so easy to try to convince the people to open mind. You know that only 2 things are infinite in this life, no? The universe and the human stupidity. And who said that one was not yet convinced about the first one. So it's human mind. No? But the young generation speak very well in English, and beside of my tongue mother is not Spanish, Catalan. So in my house people speak, only my wife makes very afraid because she don't speak Catalan when we talk. But it's a culture, many years, very old. It's like Reinhard said, the culturality, the different approach. Sorry, because I would like to shift and also encourage to you, because when we face challenges in that terms of planification, urbanism, Lima 10 years ago, rise of 8 million inhabitants. Now, Lima is more than 60 million inhabitants. Bogota in Colombia, same one. Mexico City, same one. What happened? People are living in the inland. Why? It's because terrorism. It's because another different context. And the regional, municipal, and national take the face. Let's just come on here to the city, but don't ask for me. And this means occupation of territory. Occupation of territory that will provocate problems for service supplier, water utilization, water use, waste, and many things. Now the major part of the biggest, and I think that Brazil is the same situation, are facing different challenges, looking for smart cities, because you can find inside the metropolis different cities, excluded, ghetto system. And this is another context where we need to provide a different approach, a systemic approach. We need to think holistically in order to solve another contextualization of the smart cities. It's not only America, it's also Africa.
질문 주신 것이 워낙 어려운 질문 주신 것 같습니다. 남북 문제, 협력을 이제 다시 재개되지 않았는데 이제 스마트 시티 차원에서 이걸 협력할 수 있는 거를 한번 말씀을 해주셨는데, 저는 제 개인적인 생각은 그렇습니다. 그리고 북한이라는 사회가 워낙 우리하고 다르기 때문에 그리고 인프라가 굉장히 열악한 상태에서 스마트 시티라는 여러 가지 이제 서로 간 그 인터커넥션이 필요하고 정보통신이 또 개방이 돼야 되는 문제가 있기 때문에 그걸 우리가 어떤 특별한 기술 갖다가 제시한다고 해서 해결될 것 같지는 않습니다. 그렇다고 우리가 노력을 안 할 수는 없는 거니까 제 생각에는 각 정보통신의 개방 단계에 따라서 어느 정도 이러이러한 서비스가 들어가는 여러 가지 면에서 편리한 점이 않다, 서로 간에 이득이 된다는 것을 다양한 프로그램을 만들어서 그쪽에서 선택할 수 있도록 하는 그런 것을 제시해 주는 것이 어떨까 하는 생각이 듭니다. 지금 어떤 면에서 굉장히 개방되는 것 자체에 대해서 뭐랄까 민감하게 생각하는 그런 사회지 않습니까? 그러니까 그런 거를 우리가 자꾸 찝어서 뭐 하는 것은 제가 그때는 효과성이 크지 않다고 보고, 그래서 낮은 단계부터 높은 단계까지 스마트 시티로 갈 수 있는 여러 가지 대안을 제시해 주는 것이 오히려 더 좋은 결과가 있지 않을까 생각합니다.
And I may also join from a German perspective, and I had a nice presentation on the impact of German reunification and project management. So if you start proliferating knowledge and also finances to the north, I think that may prolong the situation as it is. That was also the problem in our German situation. So first, I think there needs to be a political solution, and then the job for project management starts from a planning perspective of infrastructure. That was a big challenge for Germany to then align and reconnect all the infrastructure from roads, from any kind of transportation, but also then exchange people. Because they just simply need to understand the situation in the cities, and that's very different. It was very different in the two German parts, and I guess it's also very different in the North and the South Korea as it developed over the last 50 years. So, but I'm very happy to see from a German perspective that at least there's hope that something will change in your country. And all the best for the next development to your country to get reunited. So we wish you all the best. Okay, is there a last question? Yes, in the back. So please, microphone. And that's the last one, and then we have lunch.
Thanks for the last question. I have a question to Albergarias from Spain. I'm very interested about your approach, so-called Agile and Scrum, which as I know came from software engineering. And I was curious about how, accordingly, there are a lot of variances in that. So I'm curious about how do you apply those Agile practice in smart city development, and I'm highly guessing that any people from government and municipality probably have a kind of strong resistance to transparency and inspection. So kind of I wonder how do you practically apply these principles to your government?
it's not easy to do that in the regular basis. First of all, I train my team and the people that I work with in order to use the agile approach. That's the basics for you start to use this Scrum methodology and Kanban and other methodologies that we are applying. The second one, when I say that I'm looking for transparency and inspection, it's for the development of understanding what is needed. So we started a whole wave planning. It's not basically new when we talk about Scrum. It has 70 years or so. But now the term it's being used like it's something different, but it's not. So what we basically use is to try to combine and to make interactions. That's the basics for Agile. To make interactions with the clients, internal clients, and try to understand what they want to do. And when we go to a project like this that we have now, we have developed a project for startups in the rural area of Rio de Janeiro, an area that has a cluster for technology. So we're putting people to stay there. So that's the reason why we use this Scrum approach, that we do a lot of interaction. But there is a point that we stop the interaction and start to go to the traditional way when you have to do this to define the scope. So basically, when you use Agile for a program like that, it's because we have very different stakeholders. So it's very difficult to manage all the requirements together. So this needs a lot of interaction. So I cannot close the scope what's supposed to be done. So when we get to this, we get this scope. If it is a technological approach and we do not have the tangency, I can use this for no problem at all. So to develop apps, for instance, or when we have a technology applied. And for others that you're looking for now, it's infrastructure. You have to go to the traditional way. So we kind of use a hybrid approach. The Agile, it's a mindset in order to keep the interactions and try to combine this with a small focus in planning and more detailing understanding the needs. So to plan something in detail, we understand, at least I've been using this in Rio de Janeiro, is that it's very difficult to manage all the interests among the parts. As Jesus said, the problem in Spain it's not very different from Rio de Janeiro. So when I put clarity, when I put this transparency, it's very interesting because most of the times we think that, wow, people will not like it. It's the opposite. People are enjoying it, I like it, because it's clear for everybody. I do not, when you put, to build trust, it's the key to develop smart cities, because citizens must understand what's going on. The businessman needs to understand what's going on. Now we're developing this technological park in the countryside, and we have very big companies going for that. We have Orange, we have Microsoft, we have very big companies that are going for that. Because they understand that we can combine this environment and all that. So, of course, when you go to politicians and you have to go to the legal part, that the woman have identified himself as a lawyer, we have a lot of problems in Brazil with the legality of what you're doing. So we're going to create this contract. Well, I'm not part of that. Of course, there is a lot of issues, but this part I keep to the lawyers. I do not get inside of that. So to keep the transparency and to keep this mindset, this open mindset, this is what I believe that started to create this smart citizen. Because people need to understand whatever the role that they have in this game, we need to move forward together. We need to develop the social approach. When you try to help people, it's not because you're a good people. It's because you care about yourself. Because if I have more people engaged in a social approach, I have less violence, I have less problems, I have less poverty, though this creates a better environment for me, for my kids, not only for them. So I try to call people for this fight, not focusing the social problem, it's focused on themselves. It's been working. And the agile approach, it's so easy for them to understand what's going on. It's so transparent, the methodology that's being used. It's so simple. It doesn't mean that it is easy to be used, because people must believe and have the compliance with the information that they're giving to the program. It's that we create a very different environment that I've been working into, and at least the government side. Of course, when you go to infrastructure, to larger projects or programs that have a lot of money involved, it's another kind of a story, okay? So that's, you must separate, that's a hybrid approach. And possibly, one thing that's supposed to be discussed inside this special interest group that you're creating here in IPMA, which IPMA Korea is the leader of this special group. It's how to create this hybrid methodology and to understand all these matters and problems that they're going to face, because the culture aspect and the interesting, the management of interest is very complex. So we go to Brazil, well, we have a lot of problems with corruption, but I don't think that's very different in all parts of the world. That is more regular. Was, now it's changing, but I guess the problem we're going to face the same way all around. So there are politicians that are going to do projects that has nothing to do with society, and they're calling it smart programs. So regarding your question, I guess Agile can be the beginning of a journey in trying to create the transparency and force them to use this in a clear way.
Thank you very much. It was a good kind of summary of the first session. So we'd like to have more on smarter cities, but not per se, but for the benefit of the people. And we need to integrate the people, so they should participate in building smarter cities. But also we need to balance between the cities and the regional development, and also balance the development in the cities. And technology is important, yes, we said, it's a key asset, but it's not the only thing that we need. So the focus needs to be on the people. So thank you, and now the focus is on you, and lunchtime. Please announce what we're going to do now.
Thank you.